Welcome to the Comfortable in Chaos Podcast. Strangle your demons and let's go.
Y'all need Jesus!
I'm back in the saddle again. Welcome to the Comfortable in Chaos Podcast. I am your host, Eric Hellberg. You know we're like Einstein over here. We have no special talents. We're just passionately curious about all things pertaining to men. Should I branch out and say mankind? Yeah, we can add mankind, but primarily with men interfacing within mankind. And you heard me sing Back in the Saddle again before on a much earlier episode. Of course, I love Aerosmith. My wife loves Steven Tyler. But I'm just simply getting back in the saddle because we had to get through Christmas. I told you on the last episode that I released called Christmas to Kwanzaa that I would have liked to have broadcast sooner, but we had so much family over and I just couldn't steal away and get the quiet time in which to do so. But I'm back! Here we are. And in the spirit of Kwanzaa, I'm at a point in my life, guys, and I think we all get there. Maybe you're satisfied with what you have achieved, where you have arrived. Maybe you hit a brick wall for whatever reason, and then you started reevaluating life. Maybe even your own spirituality. And you start looking, but you know you want to understand, and or you want more, and you want to learn. It is incumbent upon you to constantly be learning, along with so many other things, but always be a student. The student is never greater than the master, right? And what does it say in Hosea? My people perish for a lack of knowledge. So I said, just like Nolan Ryan, unbelievable placement on fastballs, the curveball. I mean, it would just decimate people. But we're going to focus on one thing and we're going to do it well. Several tenets within Kwanzaa, but I'm focusing on Umoja, unity. Why? Because 2024 is fastly approaching. We have a presidential election this year. It is going to be wild in this country. And we need people that will be promoting our togetherness instead of I hate the word divisiveness, but isn't it just that? How about incisiveness, like incisors cut through things? If you're promoting the breaking apart of people when we're one nation here, we don't need you. And you'll never get to that level if you're already doing it. Unfortunately, it does happen. And that's why I called for, if you're ever going to be an elected representative at the national level, shouldn't you have a great track record at your local level? Because that's horrific when you get to that stage, what we call the show. But if you're in local politics or a local leader and you're already doing it, that's bad enough. So let's talk more about unity. I know that they have had therapeutic alpacas or llamas at the Portland International Airport. And we know those Portland boys, all those greeny weenies. I like to call them chili willies. I tell you, they love all things that have to do with nature. And it is a beautiful state. But they said due to the holiday season, so many people are entertaining stress upon themselves and families. Sometimes they only get peanuts on their flights. Maybe their beverage selection is slight. And, of course, traveling with kids is a big problem. And so they needed some animals that they can hug. Well, damn it. We all need help from time to time, but those animals have a lot of hair, very long hair. Think Chewbacca walking through the airport. They even have handlers. Boy, they've dressed them up like reindeers. Oh, yeah. And what about when they poop and pee? Well, that's creating disharmony and stress on their caretakers. So if you find in your life that your problems are constantly becoming problems for someone else, maybe you need to take in a different approach to what it is that you're dealing with. Everyone has enough to contend with in their own daily existence to put other people's worries and concerns on themselves also. Now, is it applicable from time to time? Absolutely. Is that where the human condition comes into play and there is empathy? Absolutely. But no one is designed to carry that burden for everyone else. Right? That's why this whole illegal immigration thing, one, it's unlawful. It's tragic. There's many more demonstrable words we can use for it, but when the ones that are acknowledged come across, they're fed, they're clothed, they're given their $5,000 stipend and their mobile phone and free transportation to a site of their choice, and this has happened by the millions, and you're working your ass off in this society of diminishment to pay for it, it doesn't chap your ass? Well, that can tear apart some unity. Here's something I was going to say on that a little bit further. When we hear the word activism, community activation, community activist, organizer, what is it that you are actually activating? Are you activating unity, harmony, togetherness? Or are you doing something opposite of that? Are you creating friction and angst between other groups? Then what kind of community activist or organizer are you? That's a very good question. And we're just setting the stage for what is to come, as we have a wide sweeping election coming in 2024. Who is it that we're going to choose to represent us? I tell you what, I like Vivek Ramaswamy. And since we do have so many illegal aliens in this country now, bringing them in by the millions, he's a first-generation immigrant. Well, maybe he's the person, since we've been told by, at least on the national level, the Democratic Party says we're a nation of immigrants. Okay, well, if that's true, then maybe we need an immigrant to deal with all these new immigrants. Maybe there's a better understanding. We know the world is complicated, diverse, large, but it's also very small. We all interface together. Who better to deal with the issues of Pakistan and India, right? One nation at one time under British colonial rule. They separate in 1947, but India and Pakistan are still very much the same. And we know our U.S. government likes to flip sides between one or the other, really depending upon the issue at hand. Man, I think Vivek could handle that situation pretty well. And if we can get those guys on board with us, boy, I tell you what, that may help us bolster some stability in a region that is increasingly unstable by the day. You betcha. Of course, we have Kamala. Kamala is of Indian ancestry. On one side, her father is Jamaican. That's Donald Harris. And on that note, I had some friends of mine that are looking to go to Jamaica. And I have, through a past associate with, I guess you could say, governmental ties, I am friends with a dude named Patrick in Jamaica. And really what Patrick does, and he was in the Jamaican army and a few other things on the intelligence apparatus, but when we travel there, and it's been a little bit, he essentially provides overwatch for us because Jamaica's wild, man. It is wild. I love the vibrancy. I love everything going on that island. I love the people. But truth be told, man, you're in the wrong spot, and a lot of times the wrong spot can find you. They'll tear you to pieces over there. And, you know, Patrick's still there, and he's the first one to tell you, but that dude's strapped. And it is pretty cool when you pull up to a congested fuel pump with old Patrick, and you've got 4 minivan, really kind of mini buses vying for filling up at that fuel island. Dude, Patrick gets out, they see who it is, and they all back away and let you pull in there. I'm like, dude has some juice, man. So, I mean, if you want to hit me up in the comments section because you want to go to Jamaica and you want to be safe and you want to enjoy yourself, he'll screen you. But I have no problem passing your information on to him. You tell him you know me, and he'll take it from there and give you a green light or a red light. But really, I called to visit with him about that, but I also wanted to visit with him and wish him Merry Christmas and Happy Kwanzaa. He's like, Eric, what the heck is wrong with you, fool? He's like, you know we don't do no Kwanzaa in Jamaica. I'm like, you don't? I said, Kamala Harris just released a video talking about how her family would celebrate Kwanzaa. It's like, we celebrate Christmas, dude. We don't do any of that. She's just fooling you. We don't want to be fooled anymore. We don't care who's doing the fooling. And I can tell you, there's going to be a lot of moves being made this year. We're all tired of being fooled, especially by our unsavory leaders. That's why I kind of like old Vivek. That dude is smart, very youthful, and he is wanting to shake things up. Is it easier said than done? Perhaps. But I can tell you this, the vast majority of Democrats do not like Joe Biden. And we know that he is essentially staying away from New Hampshire because, remember, when he ran last time, he finished 5th to other Democrats in New Hampshire. The first primary, President Joe Biden finished 5th. And then he supposedly went along and got more votes than any other human being in history. He did a lot better in South Carolina. That's why he's abstaining from New Hampshire. And they actually tried to amend the New Hampshire Constitution whereby they are supposed to go first. But they wanted Joe to, be represented in South Carolina first. So maybe he could get a little momentum going on. But the way these delegates and super delegates work, it is tricky business. Think Bernie Sanders, who probably would have been the Democratic nominee the past 2 times. But, buddy, those entrenched apparatchiks in the Democratic Party and those superdelegates took away the actual will of the people. That ain't cool. That ain't cool at all. But here, let's make some predictions. The Democratic nominee ultimately is not going to be Kamala Harris because Californians didn't even like her. And I don't know what she was prosecuting when she was over there in San Francisco because I've sat right there in Walgreens down near the wharf, and I've had 2 dudes come in there stealing ice cream sandwiches, loading them up in the bottom of their hoodie, the other one getting chocolate bars. And I'm not talking like Milky Way. I'm talking Lindt chocolate, 70% stuff. I like that. That's why I was close by. And I made sure I was cool with them and all. And I mean, they were just doing their thing. If they would have taken a step closer, they would have went down. That simple. I was that close. But they grabbed their stuff. They took off. The people in there just looked. It was already pervasive back then. And then it got so dangerous we stopped going. And now that Walgreens is closed. So if she couldn't prosecute that, we know she certainly cannot prosecute the country. The Democratic Party does not want her. Here's what's going to happen. Joe is going to bounce around. And he is going to pick up his delegates along the way in some of the primaries. But by about May or June, he's going to announce that he is no longer going to seek the nomination for president for the Democratic Party. And does that mean the delegates go away? No. Whichever ones that he has achieved will be held by him, but he is allowed to give them forward. And you want me to tell you who they're going to give them forward to? Old pretty boy Gavin Newsom. Oh, yeah. The same guy that will bring in Xi Jinping from China, and he will uproot every homeless guy that he has compassion for, clean up all the needles, the excrement, the vomit, the pee. In fact, they'll use chemical washes. Oh, yeah. They'll sanitize that whole area, relocate them at taxpayer expense, build a wall whereby the Chinese proceedings occur to keep them from trying to come back into the areas they have been occupying, hold the meetings with Xi Jinping, usher him back home to the CCCP, and then allow the homeless and everything else that's going on in those monstrosities of areas to occur again. So if you like the way that California's going, you know I'm broadcasting to you from Texas, and we have a migration problem here in Texas. That's why our property taxes are going up, home values, because California is vastly more expensive than the great state of Texas. And that's why we are not only being infiltrated on the southern border, but we're being infiltrated by our western border. Californians leaving the oppression of their golden state under Gavin Newsom and others. So if you like California, well, hold on to Gavin Newsom, right? We know his hair's not going to move. So hold on to the dude, and that's what we'll get. But I don't think that's what the people want. But mark my words, something is afoot that will not remain. We know that President Biden, everyone espouses it. The cognitive and the mechanical decline is embarrassing. Give the poor guy a break. Send him home. But I think it will be Gavin Newsom. And I think he will end up running. I'll tell you this too. I know there's a faction in the Republican Party. There's probably some good old boy factions there that would like some of the old rhino ways of old, but there is a cemented faction that wants Trump. That dude is facing so many federal indictments and state indictments. I could be describing it wrong under the law. Doesn't matter. You know what I'm talking about. It's hard for me to believe that something is not going to stick. Now, what's crazy is you can be a convicted felon, and I believe you can be incarcerated at the time and still assume the presidency. Will that happen here? I don't know. But I'm telling you, there's enough shit that's been thrown around. Something's got to stick, right? So we could have that crazy thing, crazy orange hair and an orange suit. Or we may have someone like Vivek. So much up in the air. And that is why we are in desperate need of unity. Just food for thought as we're building up our stamina and building up our momentum for 2024. I think I'm going to get into our own spiritual and personal unity and how that can emanate from us to others on our next episode of the Comfortable in Chaos podcast. I'm your host, Eric Hellberg, and I bid you bon voyage, my burgeoning flock.
Until next time, like and subscribe to the Comfortable